Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live session at the Reactor. My name is Rav, and I'm the program manager here at Reactor London. Before we get into the session, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We're all here to learn, so please be respectful, please be kind, ask a lot of good questions. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage all of you to participate. So we're back with another episode and the last episode of Data Dive Bootcamp with Victor, who has put together an absolutely amazing session with lots of demos for you. And we're also running a Cloud Skills Challenge as part of this series, which Victor is going to share the details, and I will also put the link in the chat. But with that, I will now hand it over to Victor, who will take over the session. Hi, Victor.
All right. Awesome. Hi, Rob. Yeah, we're good. All right. So, hi, everyone, and welcome once again to the Microsoft Reactor session. This is the last session in the Data Dive Bootcamp. And I hope you're all geared up and ready for this session because there's a lot of demos and we're going to do everything really, really quick. Okay. All right, so I'll just do a brief introduction about myself. Rav has already talked about me briefly. Yeah, so I'm an ambassador at Zindi. I'm currently also a teaching assistant at RAIN, which is one of the 4 leading robotics and artificial intelligence training institutes in Nigeria. And I currently, at the moment, build custom LLMs for 5Ys in Singapore. You can find me on any of my socials for Twitter, it's Olufemi Victor T, LinkedIn, and GitHub as well. I'm happy to connect. And just as Rav has mentioned as well, the ongoing Cloud Skills Challenge, you can do well to join in and make the most of it and take advantage of the learning resources that are available there. So you can either go to the link aka.ms/datadivecSC, or you can just simply scan the QR code, which will take you directly to the page. So I'll just give a few seconds for folks who want to scan the QR code. All right. Okay. So just to move in real quick. So the outline for some of what we'll be doing today is building and deploying models. The Data Dive Bootcamp has been on for about a month now, and I'm sure you've been able to make the most of the sessions, join, take advantage of the learning resources. And for those that have started the Cloud Skills Challenge, I hope you are having fun learning and having fun building. So I'll be taking this quick demo where we'll be talking about building machine learning models and taking them straight to deployment on Azure. So what we'll be doing for this session essentially is building a classification model. We'll also build a web app where we can use our trained model, and then we'll deploy the machine learning model using the Flask framework. And just to add, of course, you can use the chats as well and let us know where you're joining in from the chats. All right. So when we talk about deploying machine learning models, right? So over time, for the past, bootcamps that we've had, right? I mean, the previous sessions, there have been teachings on, data preparation. There have been teachings on, the entire data ecosystem as well, the workflows and how data is being used even in the industry, right? And of course, as a data scientist, an ML engineer, or an AI engineer, or whatever you do in data space, sometimes you want to just not just show your work. For data scientists, for instance, right? They spend their time cleaning data, building machine learning models, but of course they have to also show this models work. Right. So in as much as you can build machine learning models, it's also important to show your work, and not just on your local PC, but sometimes even show it, to folks that are not within your reach. Right. And the only way you can do this, of course, is to, either deploy it using a web server, or you can use any prototyping tool. So essentially, deploying machine learning models involve you training the model, of course, as a data scientist, you'd have done your model, data preparation, modeling, and of course you then train the model so you can come up with a model. And of course you'd have to validate this model to ensure that you have good a good result, right, a good metric. And then you move on to an essential part, which is deploying that machine learning model so that it can be accessible, right? Both locally while you are testing your deployment frame, and of course when you even deploy on the web as well. And of course, for the machine learning life cycle, as mentioned in some of the previous episodes, it's not just enough to build, validate, and deploy, but of course there comes in monitoring as well, where you need to monitor the life cycle of your workflow. Yeah, but of course, so we'll do a quick demo, and just if you're with your PC, this will be a good opportunity for you as well to get your hands dirty. Okay, and just to point out also, the previous episode from this series can be found in the chat. In case you are just joining us for the first time, you'll be able to find some of the previous episodes in the YouTube link in the chat. All right. So for today's session, we'll be walking through, of course, deploying a machine learning model. And of course, one of the very popular frameworks that is being used to deploy a machine learning model is the Flask. And Flask is essentially a library. It's a lightweight Python web framework for building web applications. And I really love Flask because of its simplicity and flexibility. Mind you, there are also really cool web frameworks as well, which are of course used to deploy. We have Django. Some folks also use Fast API to build API backends as well for either a conventional web app or even for their machine learning workflows. But for this demo, would be focusing on Flask. And of course, if you want to install Flask, you can always find Flask in the PyPy packages for Python, and you can just do a pip install Flask to get it installed. Okay, so that will be all from me on the slides. We'll come back to the remaining of the slides, but we would like to go deep down into getting our hands dirty and of course building something. Okay, so I'll just share my entire screen now so that you can see some of it. Okay. All right, so hopefully you should be able to see my screen. Yeah, and in here I have some Python apps which I've just prepared ahead for the sake of this presentation. But of course, each and every of this notebooks and resources will be made available, both here in the chat, and of course I would also do well to send in the resources links. Okay. So I'm going to open the entire folder. Should I save or not? Yeah, so let me let it slide. All right. So I have a data set which I've actually prepared. So let me rather open VS Code here so that you can see. All right. So okay. So I'm going to spin up my Jupyter Notebook instance, which I've prepared ahead. And of course, just to give you a background of what's actually happening. So I have a data set. Let me show you exactly what the data set entails. I said earlier, I would make and ensure that those resources are made available. so that you can then practice with it and even follow through the demo as well. Okay. So this is currently the data that I have, and of course you can see it's some sort of like I know what it is, but just like for people that are seeing it for the first time, you'd notice that you have something like building painted or not, building fenced or not, gardens, if a house has settlement or not, just to show you what is in there, right, and the likes. So you'd see if you're very observant, you'll notice that this house is, this data set is talking about some sort of house features, right? And just to tell you, yeah, for reals, what it actually is. So this is a data set of an insurance company, a demo data set, where these are essentially just houses of people, and of course this is the label, the class labels telling you if those folks will come for their insurance claim or not. And so essentially what this data set was actually used for was to figure out if certain people would come for their insurance or not if there was a fire outbreak, right? And of course you can see for use cases like this, insurance companies could essentially like use such models to actually predict who would come for insurance or not, and of course then be able to adjust either policies, and several other expenses within the organizations to account for all this, right? So what we're going to be doing essentially is building a machine learning model that would model this data and will then be able to make predictions and then deploy to the cloud. Awesome, right? Okay, so I said earlier, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually upload this data set to GitHub, so that for folks who want to join in, you can then have access to the data. So what I'm going to do is 1 second. So I'm going to go to github.com, and I'll create a public repository. Okay, so I'm going to call it Microsoft Reactor Flask then. Yeah. I think this looks like a cool name, right? So yeah. And I'll just leave the description for later. If you'd also like to send a pull request, I'm going to make it open so you can feel free to. Probably should not add a readme since I already have it locally. So I'm going to create the repository, and yeah, you can always find it on my GitHub, and my username is Oshinkolu, Osinkolu, and then you can essentially find it in Flask demo. All right. So let's in real time now. Let's try to see how we can then upload the codes. All right. So I'm going to open my terminal. I'm going to clone the repository and just do a quick push. Okay. So I have a terminal opened. Right. So let me git clone what I've just created. Okay. And I'm just going to do the lazy style. I'll just copy everything in here and paste it here. Okay. Or rather, let me copy the contents and put it in the Flask. Then, okay. Yep. So now we can just cd into the repository we've created. Okay. 1 second. Okay, let me reopen the terminal here. All right. So I'm just going to add it up. Um, so I'll just add everything and get commit so initial commit and yowza, that's a lot of files. And I'll just do a git push and hopefully we can then uh, commit everything to GitHub. Oh, awesome. All right, so let's go back to GitHub and let's see if our files have been added. All right. Yeah. So if you'd like to follow through, of course, just go to github.com /OSINKOLU and Microsoft Reactor Flask. The MRF is capital and demo. All right. So let's go back to the codes and just continue the workflow. So I'm going to open right now the Jupyter notebook so that you can see how we're going to build the model. So building a classification model is pretty straightforward. Of course, like in previous episodes, some of all these things have been talked about, so you can do well to watch them. But of course, in Python, here we're just going to import pandas as PD. So I'm going to connect my environment. And yeah, we are good to go now. So you can just import your pandas as PD, your NumPy as NP, and of course you can import Pico as well, because that's what we're going to use to then save the model with, right? And of course then you can run PD.read CSV, the train data, which then shows you the train data set. And of course, if you look closely, you have the customer ID, year of observation, the insured period, for how long the house has been insured, if it's a residential house or not, or in a residential area, right? You also have if the building is painted, if the building is fenced, if it has a garden, settlement, and if you look closely, you have NV. So the N means no, and the V means yes. So which is quite funny, right? But yeah, just take it that way. Then you have the V for garden, which is yes, and the O for garden, which is no. And of course, you have settlement as well, which is urban or rural area. And you also have, you also have the building dimension, that which shows you the dimensions of the building. And of course, there's a sort of categorical column called the building type, where you have types 1, 2, 3, 4, which of course was used to then represent duplex, a flat, and so on. And then you could have date of occupancy, then the number of windows in the house. And of course, if you look really closely, you'd see like food stop, which then shows you that, of course, no data is perfect. You would, of course, in real life scenarios have, weird or strange data points in your data set. And the same thing applies as well to the test set. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to predict the claim. So if the user will come for the claim or not, right? And if you look at the claim accounts here, so I did a values count that then shows you, the number of zeros or ones that are in the claim, right? And you can see we have about 5,526. That's no's that for the existing claims. So 5,526 did not come for the training data for their insurance claim, and about 1,634 data points we had where they came for their claim, right? And now that we're going to build the model, we can then drop the claim, which of course is the target. I have already saved it in a variable name called claim. That's why I did claim equals to data train claim, and then you can then proceed to drop it. All right, and yeah, this is just my own personal thing. Um, because I come from a very competitive data science background, I like to most times just clean my data set at once. So that's why I like to, concatenate them. So I add the train and the test together. Of course, the test has no claim, and that's why one of the reasons why I had to remove it from the data set so that we can then use it. So if you look at the end of this is geocode, but the train has claim, but the test does not, which of course would be in real life scenarios. Right. Okay. Then of course you can also drop the customer ID as well, which is what I did here, because each customer ID is unique, so that won't be important in modeling your data, right? And you can check out the info, which it's a Python function that tells you the information about the data set. And of course, you would see we still have objects, right? That's the building, painted, fence, garden, and settlement, right? And in this next line of code, what I then do is to sort out the mapping of those object columns, right? So as I mentioned earlier, V we can replace it with one, O we can replace it with zero, and so on and so forth. And of course, for urban, I decided to replace it with two, which I mean is just my preference because I wanted it to be a bit far from R, which is the rural. So as data scientist, you have power over how you decide to build your model, design your model, clean your data, and I'm happy to also hear any experience you try. Okay, so I'm just going to. Okay, so I ran that twice, so I should not have. So I'm going to rerun this. Okay, so then of course I would fill in missing values just to have a sense of. Let's see this. So data dot is null the sum, right? Um, so it shows that we have missing values. Um, for garden we have 11. For wow, date of occupancy has quite a bunch. The building dimension has about 119 and geocode has 115. So for the garden, I decide to fill by random integers between 0 and 2. For the building dimensions, I decide to use the median, and for the date of occupancy, I used the median as well. All right. So then I also noticed that there were outliers in the building dimension. So you can do a data.describe to see that. Usually, I would have loved to do a lots of plots, but then you can explore that on your own as a data scientist, right? So if you look at the building dimension, you'd see we have a minimum dimension of 1, which of course is impossible because you can't have a building dimension with 1 square 1 square meter. So I mean that's really ridiculous. So I had to then change the building dimensions, and I reduced you know anyone below 30. I used 30 because like that was like an outlier threshold mark, which I had already explored previously, and replaced it with the mean, which is 1,808. So of course, as I said earlier, you can then feel free to design it as you wish, right? And of course, I then move on to modeling, which is then simple now that we have our data set ready, just to show you what it looks like. Yeah. So we now have all our data in numerical values, right? Geocode, everything is numerical now. So we can then decide to build a model. So I'm using the CatBoost classifier, to build a model. Learning rate, just specifying a basic learning rate, and of course this is just a basic modeling strategy, right? Which I then use. And if you then look here very closely, you would see I then split it back into X train and X test, which of course is the original test and train that was given to me. Because of course this test set does not have the claim, so I can't use it to model. So you can then build, and yeah, this will probably take a while, so I'll probably just skip this. Oh, okay. Looks like it's going really fast. Okay, so that's it. So we've modeled it and we've built a card boost model, right? Which I then saved in classifier, right? Then you can then use that classifier to make predictions. But of course, this whole workshop that we're having now is about deploying, because you would have already built a basic model, and now you have to then deploy it in a real life setting. So after building your model, you can just save your model by using the pickle, and it's just one line of code. You can exclude this. So this is to load your model back. So you can exclude this, and it is just pickle.dump. Then you dump your classifier, which is this that you've created, that you fit on, and then you specify what file name you'd like to save it as. And for my own case, for instance, I'm using xmodel.pickle. And of course, you write the bytes, which is WB. Remember that I've imported pickle at the very beginning, which I then used to pickle the model. So voila, that's all. And you're done building your machine learning model. And you can also then look for it saved. So this is it. And when we talk about your machine learning model, I mean, this is everything in this file right here. Okay. And then we are going to then see how we can deploy this through Flask. For that, I've created a simple Flask demo code just to show you what Flask really is. So as I've mentioned earlier, Flask is essentially a web framework where you can then use, a light one that you can use to deploy your machine learning models, or even use to build backend applications, right? And of course, when building your machine learning or deploying your machine learning models, you can then use a simple Flask app. And you'd see that a Flask app is as simple as this. Let me cut this out so that I can show you. I mean, this is just like 12 lines of code, right? So just import Flask from Flask, call the Flask app, you create a Flask object and save it in app, and then you point out the root. So now the root is essentially the endpoint. Of course, if you have visited any website, you say google.com/something, right? Or microsoft.com/something, right? So that shows you essentially how you can then apply these roots, right? So I'm going to specify this root. So this root means this means the base endpoint or the root endpoint. And of course, I will also specify my request. So for this case, I'm using a GET request. And then I can say, hi, welcome to Flask. And let me just show you that this works. So I'm going to run this server now. All I need to have to do is just to run, and I'll just run without debugging. So let me just run this so we can see what it looks like. Okay. Yeah. So it's running already on one of these servers. So I can just open any one of them. So I just clicked on it and that's opened. And you can see, you can see, hi, welcome to Flask. So writing a Flask app is as simple as that. That's as simple as it gets, right? And of course, you can also have a post method. And for folks that are wondering, oh, what's a GET request? What's a post request, right? So it's really basic. So a GET request is simply, a request you send to query, a server, and just request for something, right? So you send a GET request. It means you just query the server to receive something, and you are not necessarily changing the state of the server, because you are just asking for something the server already has. You are not creating new resources. You are not changing the state of the server. You are just simply getting something on that server that is already there. And for post request, it means you then you now want to send something to that server. You want to post something there, as the name implies, so that you can then change the state of the server and maybe receive something back from the server as well. Okay, so in my Flask app, I've just added another root, which is called /greetings. Let me put a T here, so it makes sense. So you have /greetings, which I've already defined. So when you say greetings, what happens? It requests for your name, and it says, hi, your name, how are you doing today? So that's as simple as it goes. But of course, unfortunately, we can't send post requests like directly from the browser without a form or without a front end. So I'm going to use Postman to do that real quick. 1 second. Okay, so let's see how that goes. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to rerun. So let's rerun this app. And let me pull up Postman. Okay, so for folks wondering what Postman is, no, there's no issue at all. So Postman is just it's much more than an API testing framework. It's an application you can use to test your API among several other things. So personally, I just use it to test my API endpoints, right? So I'm going to copy this address and I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to send a GET request first so that you can see. So you can see what we saw in the browser earlier. Let me maximize this so you can see it clearly. So you can see, hi, welcome to Flask, which we saw. And then remember, we have an endpoint called /greetings, which we've created. And essentially it requires you to send a body. Yeah, so I'm going to send a body. So I've written name here as my key, and I'm sending Victor. So I'm going to send that as a post now. So let me press enter and send that. And voila, I get a response from the server. Hi, Victor. How are you doing today? And let me change the name to Rav, who is currently on the call as well. And let's try Rav as well. So hi, Rav. How are you doing? So you can see that then it means that you can have a web framework where you can send something to, you can do a processing, and you can get a request back or a response, right? So that really makes sense because it means that when you deploy an API, you can then send a request to your API. If you can send a form, if you're sending a post request, and then do some processing in the background in your definition functions, or you have lots of spaces to do that, and you can then send a return response, right? Okay, so that's as simple as it gets in building a Flask app. And of course, sometimes you might want to go beyond just building an app, I mean an API. You most likely will want to build a front end, all nice and fine, so that people can actually test your deployed model. Okay, so for the sake of that, I've actually written some codes, which I'll just show you in a couple of minutes. All right, so let me go down to the insurance codes. Yeah, so the insurance codes, which I've just uploaded to GitHub, contains a bunch of things. Among that, it contains the Flask app, which I've created to do the deployment. And let me walk you through what I'm actually doing. So I've shown you a simple workflow of what a Flask can do and how you can build a simple, Flask app. And now let me show you what I've done to the machine learning model we just built, right? So I did, simple imports from Flask, import Flask. I'm importing Pickle again so that I can load back my model. Remember that I saved it with Pickle, so I'm loading it back. And of course, I have my pandas for some things. I'd say I'm probably not using it. That's interesting. And I also can see I have NumPy as well. Then as usual, you create a Flask app by just simply saying app equals to Flask __ name, which you saw already. You can then see I'm loading the model we built by simply saying pickle.load and loading that model, which we just created, right? Okay, then of course for my endpoints, so when you go to you can call it the base URL, which has no endpoint specifically, you'd see I'm saying, oh, just to render templates. And you'd ask me, I mean, for this basic app, I was simply just returning, some text. But here I'm saying render templates. So that's new, right? So render template is used to actually render your HTML code that you have. So which I've already personally saved in my template structure, which I'll show you shortly. So I've saved it as an insurance prediction.html. And if you look at it really, let me show you where it is. It's just simply an HTML script, which I've written, a form script that I've nicely written to then have a nice front end. So let me show you. Let me actually show you. So if you go to templates in the Flask demo that you already have, you can then go to insurance. Of course, it's looking so oddly because I'm not loading it with the CSS, right? But essentially what it is a simple HTML script. So I'm going to load it with the CSS now so that you can then see what it looks like. Okay, so that is what it is. And of course, I also have my CSS script and a couple of nice images I've put just to make my HTML fine, right? So in the templates file, that's where I keep my HTML code, and in my static file I keep images, text, and whatever. For card boost info, you really don't need this. This is automatically just created by card boost. You can delete it, it doesn't matter. So I've walked you through the Python code, and for this Python code of py, it's nothing new. I just simply converted all this into a single, this is Jupyter Notebook, right? So I converted it back into a simple code, a py file, so that you can see it as a script instead. All right. So for README, okay, so I had this model deployed on Heroku, but of course, don't worry, we're going to use Azure for this demo. And then you can also see the requirements.txt file as well, which I've prepared so that I can deploy. Because of course, when you're deploying to a server, I mean, you definitely need to specify the requirements for for your app to run, right? So I used Card Boost, I used Panda, Matplotlib, and a bunch of others which I've then specified. And of course, very importantly, Flask. I've also specified out the versions in case you're having troubles running the app, so you can then install this. So enough of the talk. Let's see what the app really looks like. Okay, so for the check status, I'll show you where the check status is. But that's an endpoint that simply gets all the features from the front end, which I'll show you shortly. And then, I then do some predictions on it. I gather the features together, as you can see. So model.predict, then I pass out the prediction and, render it through the HTML. So enough talk, let's see what's actually there. So I'm going to run without debugging. So let's just run the Python debugger and let's see. Oh, okay. So I need to zoom into the insurance directory. So let me seed into insurance and then run this code here. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So let's do this again. So terminal, new terminal. And let's cd into insurance and then run this app. Oh, okay. So my machine is actually refusing to use the port. So I'm going to close everything and reopen it. Okay, so let's open it. Let's open the one in Flask demo. So let me open. Yeah, so for you folks that just downloaded it, if you are downloading it directly, you shouldn't have this problem at all. So I'm going to run it directly in Flask demo. Okay, so app, run, and run without debugging. Okay, let's hope it works. Okay, so it's up and running on this this URL. So I'm going to open it. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, voila, it's in. So yeah, I took this data from Zindi and I've put a nice Microsoft Reactor logo here because of this demo. And yeah, please feel free to change all this. I already wrote my name since I designed it, and you can see what it looks like. So then you can see I can specify the year of observation, the duration, if the house is residential or not. I've already done that nicely in my HTML script. If it's fenced or not, if it has a garden or not, settlement, the size, the type of building, and so on. Then I can then check status. And runs in the background, right, and takes all this data. Of course, fenced is converted to ones or zeros, remember, just as we did while building the model. And then you can then see if the client will be here for his insurance or not. So you can actually make this finer. I know it's not really fine. So you can actually make this finer and better and more cool, right? But yeah, you can see that we'll get the predictions from the model, and I'm returning the probability instead, which is 0.07, very low. So that's a 0, right? So now that it works on our system, we can then proceed to actually deploy on Azure, right? So let's go and do that real quick. So I'm going to open my browser. Yeah, this is it. And I'm going to go home to Azure. Of course, you can just go to Azure. It's as simple as just, type in Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure. And yeah, I also like doing CI/CDs. It's really cool that Microsoft owns GitHub. So I can seamlessly integrate and just pull my codes in through Azure, and of course many of the cloud services as well allows you to do that. Okay, so just find a way to open your portal in Microsoft Azure. So let me open portal.azure.com so that we can just get this straight. And coming back to my codes are already here. So everything is set. All I need is the static, the template, the app, which is the Python app, the entry points. I also need my requirements of TXT file, and the rest I can discard, but I'll just leave it as it is in the repository. So I'm going to log in. Of course, just log in. So I'm going to come back here. So I'm assuming you've logged in already. So this is mine. Let me just refresh this. All right. So I'm assuming you've logged in. And now that you're logged into your Azure, you can just simply create a resource, right? And by doing this, we're going to create a web app resource and try to see how we can quickly deploy what the codes we already have on GitHub. Okay. For some strange reasons, it's taking some time. So let me look for web app. But then let me show you. Let me instead show you the type of resources we already have on Azure. Okay. Okay. For some strange reasons, it's requiring me to sign in. So let me re-sign in. So, okay. Oh, okay. So maybe I needed to re-sign in. So let me close this. So now you can see Azure has a lot, a whole load of resources. But for this demo, we'll be using the web app. So I'm going to go into web app, and hopefully this loads really quick. Okay, is there something wrong by creating? I've not started creating it. So of course you can use your Azure for students. Starter subscription. Or if you already have a subscription already, you can then use it. But of course, the student starter subscription is good enough for this demo. Yeah. So if you're a student, I would encourage you to actually subscribe for that. Microsoft will give you, some cloud credits to work with as a student. And you can also go to education.github to get access to your demo. Okay, so for my web app, what do I call it? Microsoft Reactor. Let's say MS Reactor Data Dive. All right. So I'm going to be uploading codes here. So I'm going to leave that as code. Runtime stack, of course, we'll use Python. Just leave it as 3 points. Let me choose 3.9. I can leave the region as is, and of course you can see I'm using the free tier. Then I can move to next. If you have a database you want to choose, you can choose that, but I'm going to skip all that. So for deployment, don't worry, we'll come back to see how we can choose this. So you can see my GitHub account is already showing mine. And don't worry, we'll come back to enable CI/CD. So you can go to networking, which then shows you networking, then monitoring as well. I mean, can skip all that and just move to review plus create. So this is, of course, if you have a subscription that supports monitoring. So for this free subscription, unfortunately, you will not be able to see application insights while your app is running. So let me just skip to review plus create because it's really as simple as that. Okay, so I've loaded a default resource group. I've named it MS Reactor Data Dive. I'm uploading some code and I'm using Python 3.9. So you can see the resources that have been provisioned for me, and then I can decide to create. So it's going to start creating it, and that's what's going to be loading here. And it says submitting deployment. So let's see. So what is happening now at the background is, of course, Microsoft is provisioning me with resources to then host my web application, which of course includes, the servers that run it, and of course the CPUs, etc., etc. So, but it says deployment in progress, and I've not deployed anything, right? So, what's actually happening now is that Microsoft makes a demo app for you, right? A Flask demo app, which you then see. So let me go to the resource and let's see what the demo app is. So let this load up. Oh, okay. So it's loading up. And of course, they are provisioning me with my name. That's the name of my web app. And of course, a domain, which of course is a free one. And a bunch of other things. Okay. So while this is loading up, I'm going to move to the deployment center. So if you look at this left tab here, you'd find nicely this deployment center hidden right over here, which of course you can then use to manage your deployments. And let this load up. So if you notice, I've already deployed, I've uploaded rather the codes to my GitHub, which is this MR Flask demo. And you see nicely how I'm going to connect it. So over here, I'm just going to go to the settings, which is, deployment center. This loads up. You go to the GitHub, which of course you want to use for your CI/CD. And of course, my organization, I have a bunch of them, but I'm going to select this, which is my GitHub account. That's OSINKOLU. So you can select yours, which is just your GitHub name. And I'm going to look for the MS Data Dive project. Oh, okay. So this is it, MR Flask demo. And of course, I'm just going to use the main branch. Okay, so I'm going to use a basic authentication for this. And yeah, that's all. I'm going to, okay. So it says SCM basic authentication is disabled for your app. Click here to go to enable it. Okay, so let's just go and enable it. Okay. So basic authentication on. Yeah, can switch this on as well. And yep, I think that's all. Can then save. And yeah, updating. All right. Okay, so it looks good. And let me go back one step. So I'm going back one step, and all right. Okay, so this is the deployment center, and we are going back to, hopefully we don't have to reselect everything again. Okay, so loading deployment setting, oh, we have to do it again. So this is GitHub. Of course, I'm going to choose the last one I choose. Last one I chose, yeah. So my repository is, yeah, let's find it. So my Flask demo, I know I have a bunch, and main, and I can use basic authentication, and yep, we're good. So that's all, setting up deployment. And let's go back here to check out, let's go back here to check out. Okay, so let me refresh this. Okay, so it's building. So I wanted to go back here to check out if they've provisioned me with my domain already. Aha, so you can see, let me see if I can zoom this out. So you can see I have a new link Azure has provisioned me with, which is msreactor.datadive.azurewebsite.net. So that's a free URL that I can then use to showcase my work. So, but of course, if my deployment is not complete yet, I should have a demo app there. Of course, my deployment is still in progress, so it should probably loading up later. So this is in progress. And mind you, you can actually watch the progress, because what actually happens is that Microsoft automatically then connects you to your GitHub, and you can see, if you go in here, you can check out the GitHub actions which they've added directly to your GitHub repository, right? So you can then check out the details and then go ahead to figure out the deets. Oh, okay, so the building is complete. Going to check deploy. Let's see deploy as well. So deploy is starting job. Hopefully we run without errors. Okay, so inflating. You can see a lot of stuff are going on here. Okay, so let me just jump to the end, and hopefully this doesn't take much time. Of course, I would also check out the chats. Sorry about the multiple screens, but if you have questions, you can also drop it in the chat as well while we're working on this. Okay, so let's wait for deployment. Okay, so the page isn't working yet, and that's because I've taken over the demo app already that is supposed to be in this link. So hopefully the deployment has started already, so I'm checking it. Package deployment using zip deploy initiated. So let's hope this doesn't take much time. Okay. Right. Ah, okay. So we have a bunch. All right. So it seems we ran into some errors, and let's see if the error actually affected the app. So it says using the zip deployed failed to deploy web package to app service. Okay, so you can always come back here to then check and ensure everything works fine. Okay, so we have a failed deployment. Right. So let's go to data center and let's. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Oh, it's starting another deployment as well. So okay, this is failed as well. All right, so let's check out the problems. Okay, not configured. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me go home. And confirm if it's because I have exhausted the free resources that are available. Okay. So I've already deployed an app prior to now on Rainfire. So I'm going to check it out and see. Okay. And for some weird reasons, it's asking me to always sign in. All right. So let me load up the deployment logs. Okay, so what I'm going to try right now, just to save time, I'm going to try to redeploy the Rainfire repo and see. Let's see if that's going to. That's going to kick in. Okay, so we are almost out of time, but I would really have loved to, stay here and actually dig into loading up the file and debugging the code as well. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can rebuild this. And hopefully we get it requeued. So what actually happens when you run a build job is that Microsoft, Azure connects to your GitHub, and of course then does a build for you. And then also, aside doing the build, they then go ahead to pull your codes right into Azure and go ahead to deploy. Okay. All right. So while this is loading up, let's see if this deployment job is going to run. So I'm going to just run back to my slides and then show you the remaining parts of the slide so that you can ask questions ahead if you already have. But of course, you've seen out what the web looks like. So just to show you again, we have it here. And of course, this is exactly how it will be online as well when you have a deployed site. Okay, so let me see if I have my Rainfire. Okay, I think I have my Rainfire web as well, which I've already deployed earlier. But then I can show you what it actually looks like. Okay. So while that is loading up, let me go back to my slides real quick. So after the hands-on now that you've seen, of course, there are also learning resources which you can then, use to continue your learning journey and, of course, your building journey as well. So you've, had so much time learning about, data science, learning about data workflows. We've done building a model today, and of course how it's deployed both locally and of course the simple way to deploy it on Azure. So I'm going to do hopefully before the call runs out, we'll be able to see if we can get it deployed. But just to point out and reiterate, there's a cloud skills challenge that is ongoing where you can of course learn many cloud skills, some of which we've tried to do today by deploying a simple web app to Flask. And of course, you can either scan the QR code or find some of this in the link below, right? So thank you once again, of course, for having me. And I would expect that you keep learning and you keep building. So this is still going to take some time to redeploy, but hopefully it deploys and you'd find it in the link. So thank you once again. And I would pass it back to Rav to see if we have questions while we wait for deployment.
Thanks, Victor. We don't have any questions in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chats.
Okay.
Maybe let's give it like a few seconds before.
Okay. All right. So please feel free to ask questions. Someone asked if I could zoom in, but I think that was sometimes back. But let's see.
Okay, I guess there's no questions in the chat, but thank you very much, Victor, for your time.
All right. Oh, okay. Awesome. So just to point out again, Rav, so you can, of course, still share the link, or you can find it in github.com slash Oshinkolu slash the MR Flask demo. So for those who would like to, download the codes directly and then, use it to practice or do a test case. And of course, as mentioned earlier, the Cloud Skills Challenge, of course, is also there for you to then walk through and learn more. Yeah. So hopefully this would finish deploying a much more later time. But yeah, thanks for having me, Rav. I'm back to you.
Victor, could you send me your GitHub repo in the email so I can then share it with everyone? Could you share the link?
Sure.
Just share the
I'm happy
link
to do that
on my email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
brilliant.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining. Well, we'll see you around.